Let's get into pitfall number 3, failing to address all of the data capture quality needs when placing the UID on the asset. We've gone through hundreds and hundreds of military bases and performed marking and data capture services for existing government property. And we've learned a lot throughout that process. But the biggest learning lesson, the lesson of all, would be to recognize that when you apply a mark to an asset, that when you now are creating that IUID in association with the pedigree data, you are creating that birth record such that it lives in perpetuity. So what you want to do is make sure that not only you get the mark affixed permanently, but you also get the data capture part of it right. Let's go through that for just a moment. First of all, getting the mark to affix permanently, you've got to clean the surface properly with an industrial cleaning solution if you know in fact that you're going to use some kind of an adhesive-backed solution. You also have to consider where to affix the mark, and referring to an engineering specification is the best way to do that. There's a lot more practical advice for those managing government property that may not have access to those engineering documents that we can provide as well. You want to record the affix date for a particular audit trail so that you know when you marked an asset that it in fact records for any kind of downstream audit. But you want to validate the asset pedigree, and that was what I was referring to before. Does the record, which relates to part number, serial number, NSN, nomenclature, all of that information, is it accurate when you look at the asset that you're physically marking? And that's a critical part of your evaluation, because when you finally report this through to the government, that is unchangeable data that once you submit it, it's there in perpetuity. You also need to manage sometimes to exceptions when it comes to marking. Labels can be removed for rebuild or modification. Is there a process, if you're in part of that rebuild, where you might be blowing away a label to reaffix the exact same UID that was on that mark? Also, sometimes you're really dealing with very real space constraints and you can't mark it due to lack of space. So you have to go through what they call a bag and tag process, which is in fact acceptable. There are a number of ways when you look at it from a very high level where and when to mark. The most common in this day and age is vendor applied at source and seek and apply. When you're a vendor applying at source, you're the manufacturer or you're the key integrator taking all of these assemblies and bringing them together on new equipment, on major mods, or on spares for sustainment. If you're seek and apply, as we've fielded teams, like I've said, all around the globe, you're going out to find assets and you're marking those assets that are in operational use or in storage, depending on the circumstance. Opportunity-based and gated would be when items are changing location, and with gated in particular, you've got an intercept point where you've got something going through an in-transit point where it might be opened up from the container and marked. But again, a lot less common.